to it, which is the approval to sign the SKA Observatory Treaty. So the SKA is governed by international treaty agreement for India to sign that treaty and become a full member. Currently, we hold an associate member position in the council. And also the approval of the funding request of the amount shown there, which is meant to go till 2030, which is when the SKA enters the fully operations phase. And so this is a project which is jointly funded 50-50 by DAE and DST, with DAE as the nodal ministry, that is the leading ministry, and NCR-ATIFR as the nodal institution to oversee the work in India. So this puts us strongly on the path to becoming a part of the SKO. We have been involved in it right from the early stages, and so it's a natural fruition of the effort over the last several years. And so I'll start with just briefly what the SKA is. So it is really the most important next generation facility in radio astronomy that the whole world is looking forward to. And the square kilometer array name stands for 1 square kilometer of collecting area, which is about 30 times the collecting area of GMRT, if you just scale that. But it is to be achieved with much smaller antennas, so therefore much larger number of dishes than, say, the GMRT dishes, and much higher resolution with the final goal of having antennas spread out up to 1,000 kilometers kind of distances, and of course connected in real time with optical fiber, and a fairly wide operating range in frequencies, going from some of the lowest frequencies that are possible to be observed from the surface of the Earth. And a result of all of that is the ability to be able to do cutting edge science in many different areas. In fact, it is touted to be one of the facilities which will have the largest scope of the kind of science that can be done. And that is, I think, what is important for us as the Indian astronomy community to understand and appreciate. And so those details are all there, but this is the range of the kind of science, and I won't go through these in detail at all. You can look them up, except just to bring it to the notice that pretty much most of the things that we talk about in astronomy are covered in some way or the other in the range of science topics that the SKA will be able to address. And so in addition to this, of course, is the fact that it is driven with many new technologies that are important to make it happen. And that, again, is a list here, which I won't go through in detail, but all the way from diversified and high-tech antenna designs to quality cryogenic receiver systems to extensive optical fiber network, and the total signal processing capability, which is of the order of petaflops, and then the entire observatory management system, which is required to manage this, and I'll show a little bit of that. And in the end, when all of that data comes out, how do you process it, archive it, and how do you get the maximum science out of that? So all of this is things which really push the frontiers of what is possible today. And I'll just show that with one example. And people talk about the SKA more as a data machine or as a software telescope, in the sense that beyond a certain point, once you generate the bits coming from the receiver systems, you are just talking about terabits of data flowing through the system and petaflops of computing, a lot of it real-time computing, and in fact, a lot of the initial image making will also be done in real time in the SKA, and you get what you get is close to ready to use data products at the end, which go to the users. And those users, since they are spread out all over the world, there is an issue of how do you get this data across to the different users in the world, and how do you store it. And so there is the scope for having regional data centers in different countries or regions to be able to handle the data and make it easier for the local community to work on the data. So I'll talk a bit more about that later on. So in terms of location, this is so sensitive a facility that it has to be located in the most radio quiet regions that you can find. And so there were these two sites, one in Western Australia and the other in the northern part of South Africa, which were identified as the sites where the SKA would be hosted. And so the SKA then is split into two telescopes, which are distinct in terms of the frequency range of coverage. So the SKA mid is what is the higher frequency part of that frequency range, going from about 300 megahertz to about 10 gigahertz right now. And that is located in this part of South Africa, where people count population density as 0.5% per square kilometer kind of number. And this, similarly, the SKA low, which will go from that low frequency end, maybe 50 to 80 megahertz up to 300 megahertz, is a different design. It doesn't use traditional dishes, but it uses dipoles and a collection of dipoles which forms a station. And you can think of a station as akin to a single dish, but it is much more flexible than what a single dish can do. And then of the order of a few hundred such stations spread out over a fairly large region in this first phase of the SKA. And the project has a central administrative headquarters, which is located under the shadow of the iconic Jodrell Bank radio telescope near Manchester in the UK. And this is something that is already and functional. And the way the SKA is planned, what is going to be done first is what is called SKA phase 1, because that full SKA, the way I described it in the first slide, is truly something which cannot be done in just one go as a single effort. And so phase 1 has somewhat limited scope in terms of, say, the range of frequencies, the maximum baselines. We're talking about hundreds of kilometers rather than 1,000 kilometers. But it is to be done keeping in mind that there will be a further expansion of this in phase 2 when one is ready for that. And this work for designing this was done during this period 2012 to 2020, and the construction phase was approved by the Council in 2021, and actual work started in early 2022, and it's expected to go on till 2027, at which point it will become usable for early science, and it's about 2030 by which it will be fully operational. And that's the rough numbers for the costs for the design phase and the construction phase. And so this obviously cannot be done by one or even a few countries working together. So there is a large number of countries that are involved. So the 10 countries on the top are already members of the Council, and which means that they've secured the permission from their respective governments to join the treaty and have secured the funding that is required to carry them up to 2030. And amongst the ones that are waiting to join, we are probably going to be the next ones. As soon as the treaty is signed by the relevant authorities in the government, we will be admitted into the SKO Council, and Germany is likely to follow suit very quickly, Sweden maybe a bit later, Japan and Korea probably after maybe 2-3 years down the line. So this, I've already mostly told you about the timeline of how it happened, and so there's probably nothing much new here. And I'll move on and talk about what has been our involvement in the SKA and what does the future plans look like for further contributions. And so we participated in the design phase. We had approval from the government to be part of the organization that oversaw the design phase during this period, which includes some early prototyping work that was done. And there were 3 different work packages of the design that we participated in, and we led one of these, the work package related to the telescope manager system, which is the end-to-end observatory management system, which will take care of both the observatories and will be something that is common across the project. And this work was done in collaboration with Indian industry and including TCS Research, whom you heard a little bit about earlier today. And this was, so this is just a little bit of history. So this is a consortium with members from Indian institutions, from industry, and from other countries working together. And we were one of the first work packages to complete the design in late 2018 or so. And for the construction phase, there have been certain work packages which have been agreed for India to be part of. And so we will be leading, again, the delivery of the telescope manager in terms of the largest contribution to that effort. And we will be having a major contribution to a delivery of some of the digital electronics for the SKA low telescope. So I showed you the SKA low station, which combines signals from the dipoles, and there is a lot of digital signal processing that is involved in order to make the beams from the dipoles. And a good part of that electronics will be built in India, with Italy as the lead country for that part of the work. We will also be involved in some part of the RF electronics for the SKA mid telescope, at least one of the bands where we hope to be actively involved in producing the item in India and supplying it, and some amount of contribution in the data processing software, of which some activity is going on, but we are looking to enhance our participation in the data processing part of the work. And as I mentioned, that we will have a data center in India for hosting some fraction of the SKA data, maybe the one that's hopefully more relevant for the Indian astronomy community. And so about 70% of our contribution to the cost of construction of the SKA is expected to come from these different areas of participation, which is about 70% of our total contribution to the construction cost, which is to build in India and deliver, working in partnership with Indian industry. And I won't dwell on this too much, but it just talks about that there are maybe 2 or 3 things here to realize, that in addition to the areas of technology that I described that we will be actually ourselves working and delivering, there are these other areas of technology that will happen in the SKO, and the way the observatory is set up, the IP policy allows any other member country to use any of the technology developed by any other member country in the project for use for in-house or in-country R&D purposes. So if one wanted, for example, to set up SKA low stations in India, we should be able to do it using the same hardware and the same signal processing systems that are being used in the SKA. So in addition, of course, as I mentioned, that our main aim, of course, is that Indian scientists have priority access to this facility when it is ready for doing science. And in the process, we definitely aim to increase the pool of manpower that is involved, both technical and scientific. And certainly, we do expect some of the spin-offs from the industries that will be working with us for items that we are producing, and maybe from some of the other areas of technology that we will have access to. So the way this has been managed so far, the Indian contribution or the Indian participation is via the SK India Consortium, which was set up in 2015, shortly after we joined the design phase. And it has grown over the years. Today, it has more than 22 institutional members across the country. You can see that, which are these, the brownish shade, sorry, the green, now I'm getting confused. There's a mix here of the member institutions as well as individual members and as well as others who've contributed to the science case, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And so the way this is managed is that each member institution has one representative on the council of the SKIC, and we do allow for associate members, that is individuals who are not, where either the institution is not a member or otherwise are wanting to be members can have associate membership status. And the SKIC coordinates all the SK related activities in the country, both the scientific and the technical aspects, via two main subcommittees, one which coordinates the Indian science working groups and the technical committee which coordinates the technical work that we are doing, and which of course both of these will grow with time. And so there's just a history of what has happened with the science community. We started in 2016 with the first science case that was published in this issue of JOA, and then this was being refined over the years. There was one major revision done in 2018, and then more recently during 2022 to 2023 there were updated science case documents which are again published in JOA. Then these science interests, as you will see if you read these papers, cover many of the aspects of the SKA science case that I described, and this currently has more than 100 faculty, postdoc students from over 20 institutions who have been involved in this exercise, and I hope that this should double by the time we are ready for actually using the SKA for science. And many of the members from the Indian community are involved in the international science working groups of the SKA with active participation, and there is of course a lot of work that the members have been doing using the SKA Pathfinder facilities, including the upgraded GMRT, MWA, and MeerKAT, and so on, which is all part of gearing up for doing science with the SKA. All right, so I stopped with this, where I've just put down in bullets points that we'd like to bring up for discussion for the rest of the session today, and just to get comments, feedback, and ideas from the community. And so I won't go through them, but I'll just leave it there, and we can go forward for a discussion.
Thanks, Yashwant. We are running a bit late, but we have a few minutes where we can take some of your questions, comments. And steering this proposal through the government has been a long process, and a core group of the SK India Consortium has been at it for more than 2 years, going through many reviews and so on. Not all of them are present here, but there are a few representatives, members of the core group. I can request Prabhu, you're there. Can you please come forward? Nirupam from ISC, Prabhu from RRI, and Yashwant, of course. So these are a few members who are around who can also help you answer some of the questions.
And you, of course. Yes.
I have been there too. Yeah, thanks. So we can move to the dais if you... Prabhu, please come forward. So your questions, please. Okay.
You need one microphone to move around. Yeah.
Is the sanction now folded into these operational costs as well?
Sorry, say that again.
Once you build, it will have some operational costs.
Yeah, actually there are operational costs even now. So the way the SK is costed, there is the cost of construction, which is the cost of whatever hardware, software, everything else that is needed. And while you're doing it, there's a cost to run the organization. And so what I talked about was the cost of construction. There is a slowly ramping up cost for running the organization, which will become the operational cost later on. It's expected to be about 10% of the cost of construction annually. That is, the fully operational phase will kick in after 2030, but there is a certain amount of operational cost that is being incurred even now, up to 2030.
So, post 2030?
Yeah.
So, India will be putting into...
Yes. So the
100 crores
yeah,
annually.
the amount that is sanctioned right now covers the contribution to the operational cost also up to 2030. And there is a statement in the DPR which says that subsequently operational cost support will be required from each member country.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, hello sir. Thank you very much for the description.
Who's
Yeah, here.
that? Yeah, okay.
Here.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had a question regarding the location of the telescope. So in the southern hemisphere, we have ALMA, that is the radio telescope. So I just had a doubt, why don't we have this telescope in the northern hemisphere?
Well, I mean, ALMA is a different frequency range. In this frequency range, some of the best telescopes currently are in the northern hemisphere, whether you think of the upgraded GMRT or the VLA. And so it was felt that this would be more useful in the southern hemisphere. But all said and done, finally what happened was there was a site selection process where different countries or places came forward with possible sites. And it so happened that these two sites were actually the best sites. And it was felt that we should have this kind of next generation facility in the southern hemisphere because that happens to be the best place, and there's already, I mean, facilities in northern hemisphere would probably end up complementing. They expect it maybe to grow also, like, you know, we have plans to further expand the GMRT. So there will be always something in the northern hemisphere which would be at least, if not exactly like the SKA, but sort of at least giving some reasonably good sensitivity.
Yes, just to make a comment that so Neeraj has put forward an article in JOA from the SK public outreach group, and I am sure that there are many young students here who are not much aware of either radio astronomy history in India or what is SK going to do. So those are kind of summarized in a very public manner in this, and then you can look at it, and then maybe you can look at some of the science cases which are highlighted in that special issue.
So I would say that that special issue did cover all the aspects. The earlier issue, 2016, was only the science case, but this 2022 to 23 issue has the technical aspects, the science aspects, as well as the outreach and other aspects. So it's really much more complete set of documents.
Yeah, so you put up that regional data center all across it. Here it is. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So has there already been any established regional data center? If not, like, what is the plan for doing that?
Yeah, so the plan is to build the data center in phases. And so actually the phase 1 is just starting. We are expecting the first hardware to be delivered within a month or so. And we will start setting up the first prototype regional center in India, which we will grow in phases to reach the final version by 2028 or so.
There will be multiple centers all across India?
No. So in India there will be one center. There will be similar centers in other countries. And most of the other member countries are planning something. Europe is planning one central center for Europe, all the European countries who are partners.
Yeah, so I have a question, Annapurniya. So
Sorry, where is that? Yeah. Yes.
this is regarding the, the data share actually. Is it commensurate with the fraction of the cost which is borne by India? And how is that, is there any agreement that, is it theme-based or is there any agreement? Because there would be I mean, if you put up a science proposal, science case, then multiple partners would have interest in that as well, right? So is there any science cases that are India-led, or what is the kind of understanding and partnership we have?
So, those are all good, and some of them are slightly tricky questions. But so the first part, I think you asked that whether our investment in the data center is commensurate with our...
the whole project as such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the data center requirement is...
basically, the total data, access to data.
Yeah, for the full SKA, you're asking, the access part is different. So I can answer the access part. I'm not sure I understood your first part of your question still. But the access part is as follows, that policy is still being evolved. Whether the policy says that the data gets just divided into the different regional centers and gets stored, which means that any scientist from any country would have the access to data in any other regional center based on the needs and requirements. And that's the next part of your question, that is there a specific science case for which you would want the data? It's too early to say these things. And one of the things which I mentioned here is for us to sit down and see which areas of science we think we can be strong and take a leadership role and have the contribution, in which case we may be able to have the decision that data of that type is preferentially sent to India, but it is not, it's not clear how that will work out.
Coming to the first part, which you said is not clear, is that in the case of, if you're asking for a telescope time in terms of traditional telescope time, if you pay for some particular nights, you get accordingly, right? So if you have a 10% share of the total project cost, then you get 10% of the nights, or in this case, 10% of the total data. So in this case, what is like a total sky survey or something like that. So what is the kind of mode? What do you do? Like you total generated data, you get 10% share, or what is the kind of?
So the way the telescope access will be decided is certainly in the ratio of your contribution to the project, the cost of the project. Which areas of science that happens to be is a bit more complicated, because what will happen is there will be a good number of key science projects which will be identified, and there will be teams executing the key science projects. There will be, those teams could have leadership from a particular country, but I don't think it's going to be exclusive, like as the optical telescope analogy that you gave, that, well, if you contribute 10%, then you get 10% of the nights, and you can sort of, decide what you want to do with those nights. Here it will be key science projects, and you would have to have, scientists from the relevant countries playing a role in those key science projects, which would decide what is the fraction of your access. It is complicated because in today's world, most of these large science projects are executed by large teams. And one does see, and that's where the tricky part comes in, as to how will it be decided that, you've got this much access to the telescope based on, number of members in a key science project, or a number of key science projects where scientists from your country are PIs. So there will be some such thing that will get worked out.
So when do you think this kind of a clarity will emerge so that the science team can be ready with it? But
yeah, that's even a more tricky question about when it will emerge. They're now getting serious with those discussions. They've been talking about all this, but it has just been mostly talk. But now I think there is seriousness, because the first of the hardware is getting put on the ground, and so people are asking, we need to sit down and work out these policies. So this thing will start. I think it will take another 2 years or so before there's some clarity as to how this will get organized in terms of deciding how much share you've got on the telescope.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hello. So I wanted to ask a similar question, but related to, like, once the data gets to India, is it correct that anyone in India, like any of the scientists in India, could ask you to get an account in order to get access to this data? Or are you thinking about only members of these science working groups which can potentially get access to this data? So I suppose it's not decided yet, but
It's
I would
not,
like
but
to.
I think the first thing you should think of the data in any regional science center. You think of just different places where the data has been distributed to find places to keep the data. Once the data is there in, say, Indian regional center, it does not mean that this is data necessarily and exclusively for the Indian community. It remains to be seen how that works out, but that is not a given right now. Once that is not a given, who will have access to the data is not going to be something that India will be able to decide. It will then be a project-wise decision about who are the PIs who have access to that data. It could be, in principle, it could be somebody else from some other country, and it could be vice versa, that some data sitting in Europe has PIs who are from India. So one should not think of it as captive data for the Indian community just because it is sitting in India. I mean, the current picture is like a global sharing of the data in the different regional centers.
Okay, but then my question is, like, anyone in principle could join the science working team, science working group, right? So because India as a country has contributed, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes. So the process of being part of a science working group is open. And that's what we would encourage members from the community to see what are the areas of interest. And we will be sort of, re-energizing, so to speak, the Indian science working groups and even organizing them. That's one of the points there. And that is the group then that would make a pitch for an Indian sort of access to India for that facility, for telescope time. It may be that it becomes part of an international team that is then doing that, and then again there will be some mechanism for deciding what sort of the access share of that team.
So more question I had, and this processing of the data. So do you expect that these data access centers will also allow you to process this data, or it is just a download facility? Because my guess is that these data volumes are going to be extremely large, and so...
So the idea is that you should be able to run a data processing pipeline to further reduce the data to the final product that is of interest. So that is an integral part of that of the data center, facility that will be available. And in fact, when we start with this prototype, that's what we're going to do, put some data from different telescopes and have data pipelines running on those, which the users can try out and then build up.
Yeah, I'm sure there are multiple questions and comments, but unfortunately, there is a next session. People are waiting. So we will have to bring this to a close. So thank you very much for coming. And thanks, Yashwant.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess while we're having a photograph, I can make a few comments. What I'd really like members to think about are the other technology areas. Most of our discussion went into science and data, but I think it's the other part that I'd encourage members to think about. I think it's okay to talk while being photographed. Yeah.
Okay, so now we move to the next part of this afternoon evening session, which is POEC activities. And this part will be coordinated by Dibyendu.
It is in the folder before this. Can you find out the POC folder? Yeah, that has all the 2 talks. I think go up a minute. This one there, I think. Is there a POC folder there?
Yes,
that's the one. They have the second one there.
This first
The PPT one, yeah. Can I have this light off? It just irritates me. Not this one, the other one, the PPT one.
Lights.
Yeah, this particular light, and it just gets into your eyes and reflects here. So there's a problem. It just reflects from here and straight into your eyes. Okay, that's good to go. Yeah. And you have the slide changer here, right? Okay, so can you hear me? All right. Good evening. So thank you to the ASI EC for giving the Public Outreach Committee this half an hour. Well, yeah, we're up there. So what we're going to do here is I'm not going to repeat everything that was there in the report to the ASI GBM yesterday because that's just going to be boring. I'll just very quickly in 5 minutes provide a synopsis of what the Public Outreach Committee is all about, what we do and what our highlights have been in this year, very briefly, and then give over the stage to 3 significant initiatives that's been happening in the domain of outreach and education in the country, and you will hear about this. So I am Dibyendu from ISER Kolkata, and this presentation and our work is done in association with the associates of the Public Outreach Committee. My deputy is Virendra Yadav, who's right now out in Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium doing some outreach events, public lectures, space tech demo, and followed by a star party there. Okay. Why do we exist? So essentially, the Public Outreach Committee is the public face and the soul of ASI to the nation. We are there to do outreach and education events, which is focused not on astronomers, but on the public and students of the country to create awareness about astronomy, enthuse young children and students about astronomy, and overall create an improved perception of astronomical sciences in the country. How do we do this? We do this by leveraging expertise that exists within the scientific astronomical community by drawing upon people like you and us and students and staff of astronomical institutions. We also work with completely public astronomical organizations or science organizations, and I'll talk about a couple of examples that, that exist in how we collaborate with other organizations. And the impact of this is that not only does it create an overall increased visibility and perception for our sciences, there are many trickle-down effects in terms of funding and other strategic sort of advantages that the community can in principle benefit from. In fact, astronomy is one of the most visible sciences in the country. We are the only to my knowledge, the only association which has a very sustained and a very visible outreach organization that does routine outreach events throughout the year. There's a couple of new initiatives that I'll talk about that we did in the last 1 year. That is typically what we do in the plenary. We give you a brief report of what we have done. Well, so we have planned and executed our own outreach events, and without going into details of this, I'll give you just a few examples in the following slides. We've also held events in association with various organizations, and again, I'll go into more details about that. We have initiated a nationwide telescope survey whose results are going to be out in a little while, and that is something we are doing in association with ISRO, because ISRO actually wanted to do this because we want to together create more capacity in terms of being, aware of the night skies, being aware about astronomy in schools, colleges, villages, and towns across India. We have also created a new resource, which is the first phase of the Astronomers in Residence program, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a little while. Two notable very independent initiatives that I would like to highlight from students and early career astronomers is the INDAS initiative, which is the network of Indian solar physicists, not just focused only or concerning only Indian students and postdocs, but across the world. They take out routine newsletters, they have their own outreach teams and doing fantastically well, and they have a poster out there. We also have a different initiative called CARINAS, which is an association of astronomers and cosmologists, again early career, this time focusing more on female astronomers and cosmologists. And they have also come out with a very nice newsletter as well as a demographic survey of the state of the field in terms of early career scientists. And I encourage you to follow these two student-led, early career scientist-led initiatives, which are doing really very well and have recently this year started working. We have some significant initiatives of national scope by associate members of the Public Outreach Committee and astronomy institutions in India. And 3 of these initiatives would be highlighted today. One of them is the IU Office of Astronomy Education at IUCA. The other is the Astronomy Curriculum Development Initiative and the Astronomy Concept Series at HBCSE TIFR. And finally, the Cosmos Mysuru and the Hanle Dark Sky Reserve initiative, which is being led by IIA. All right, so here is an example of some of the outreach events we have done. I'll just highlight 2 of those. The first one that you see here was an Astro Nights event done at the grounds of the Victor Memorial Hall over 3 nights, which was in association with the Birla Industrial Technological Museum, Victoria Memorial Hall, the Ministry of Culture, and the National Council of Science Museums, and the Public Outreach Committee, where we had star parties, we had lectures, we had science demos, all in the evenings, stretching into the early nights when we had telescopes set up for night sky observations as well. The second event that we did, that was in Calcutta. Second event that we did, which was again repeated in 2 different cities, was the outreach related with the launch of the Aditya L1 satellite, which is the first Indian solar mission involving a large number of astronomy institutes beyond ISRO. And we did outreach events at the Tamil Nadu Science Center and the Chennai Planetarium. And we also hosted an event at the Nehru Planetarium in Delhi. And many of these events actually included lectures in Bengali, here lectures in Tamil. More recently, right now, we are engaged in this celebration of astronomy events in the city of Bangalore in association with the institutions that are hosting this event. What we have here is popular lectures by various people, some of whom are listed here. We have a star party, a space tech demo that is actually in fact going on right now in Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium. We had specific events for school children, one in KV, ISC, and the other in the undergraduate teaching lab at the University of Science, where we had a basic astronomy lecture series focusing on some fundamental concepts in astronomy. A few examples of what you've been doing throughout the year. I want to highlight a couple of different things. One is the Astronomers in Residence program. This is a new initiative which is going to be implemented this year. The idea here is to sign up as many practicing astronomers and scientists as possible who are willing to volunteer their time to do outreach and education in neighboring schools and colleges in your city or beyond. We have floated a form through the Astronomical Society of India where we are signing up astronomers. In the next phase, we're going to sign up schools. There's going to be a seed grant given to schools and colleges that do not have mature astronomy programs to initiate in this direction by hosting an astronomer. That's the Residence in Astronomer program, Astronomy Residence program. And I really encourage as many of you to sign up through this form as possible. This year, we're going to have India booth again at the IUGA following our success last year. And this year is significant because you're also bidding for the 2030 IU General Assembly. We would need a lot of volunteers for that booth. Typically, we select volunteers from those who are already committed to going to the meeting because we can't really pay for travel for everybody. But this is a significant event which will require a lot of work in terms of redoing the posters, updating them, planning and designing the booth, and then physically being there and delivering this outreach and engaging with the international astronomical community in Cape Town in August. We are also going to host astronomy outreach and education workshop This year, an astronomy app competition. The astronomy app competition encourages anybody to create an astronomy themed or astronomy related app, particularly something that is relevant in the geographic and the spatial context of India, which is perhaps GPS enabled and is in the context of where you are localized to observe the night sky, or something like a Google sky, or anything, whatever you can imagine. This competition is of course open to anybody, not just astronomers. How can you help? You can help by signing up for events where we are doing outreach. Typically, I encourage people to sign up or get in touch with local outreach organizations who are doing astronomy outreach in your cities. For example, here that would be University of Astrophysics or RRI. POEC also associates have a presence here. You can write to us. We can get you in touch with organizations that are locally present in your city if you're interested in volunteering for these events. You can also sign up for some of our education programs that we have, either through HBCSE, which Aniket will be talking about, or IUOAE, which Surud will be talking about, or for example for the Astronomers in Residence program. Now, if you have money to give out, please donate to our outreach activities, and I'll talk about the fact that we actually are funded this year very nicely by private organizations. If your institute doesn't allow you to keep a prize money that you get, donate it to the Astronomical Society of India. There was a long ending conversation yesterday. I wanted to kind of get up and say, just shut up and give us the money if you can't keep it. So, right? I mean, but anyway, so that's something that you can do. Finally, I think, I wanted to acknowledge the people who have been helping us this time along. We have had help from various people in Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium, where multiple of our events have been done. We are not advertising it to you because this is not meant for you. That is really meant for the public. We really want you to be here. We have Sahil and his team at the ISC Astronomy Club who've been very actively supporting us over the last 1 week. We have the LOC, particularly Bani, Pratik and Nirupam, who has been liaising with us and the local events. Thank you for that. And we have Janvi, Shitij, Chitradeep and Yoshita, who are student volunteers for the outreach events, running around with the telescopes and hosting some of the events. And for the first time, this time we have private organizations supporting us through funding. The funding has come straight to ASI, of course. I would like to mention them. We have Edisla, who have actually in kind supported us through telescopes. We have Modern Telescopes, Kalam Labs and Agnikul, who have supported us through funding. And in fact, Kalam Labs is also hosting some of the events in our Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium today. And to all our volunteers in various parts of India where we have done program throughout the year who have volunteered for our events, a big thank you. All right. Surud, you are next. And then Aniket, and then Neeraj.
Yeah. Thank you, Dibendu.
You're going to get this.
Oh.
And this is the next slide.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. So thanks, Dibendu, for giving me this opportunity to introduce the Office of Astronomy for Education, in short OAE, the center in India. This OAE is an initiative of the International Astronomical Union in order to use astronomy, this beautiful science of astronomy, in order to promote it for getting students into science education. So the Office of Astronomy for Education Center India was established in February of 2022 at IUCAA. This is a joint collaboration between IUCAA and HBCSE TIFR. Aniket Sure and I manage this particular center. And of course, together with us, we have a beautiful team of young researchers and also astronomers who help us out in all the activities that are going on in the center. So what are the main activities of the OAE Center India? We have 4 broad objectives that we would like to achieve. First of all, we would like to professionalize astronomy education. So this is meant to get astronomers, professional astronomers, to also talk with education researchers and together with students and teachers in order to take these concepts of astronomy to the school students. The second objective that we have is to provide access to good resources in astronomy. So we are trying to do that in multiple different ways, as you will see. The third objective is to promote astronomy in school curricula. As I said, we would like to get students understand what is science, how to do science by using the examples from astronomy. And finally, we would like to create and nurture a network of astronomy associates who can help us out with all these tasks. So coming back to examples that we have been doing, so in order to, one of the slides is missing maybe. So in order to provide access to good resources, these are the kind of activities that we have been doing. So together with ASI POEC, the OE Center India, it helped in producing as well as getting this particular book about Jantar Mantar observatories out. And it was translated to 15 different languages and is available as PDF on the ASI websites. The Office of Astronomy Education itself has also worked towards producing this book called Big Ideas in Astronomy, which includes concepts which every one of us should know and all of the students should know. So this forms a reservoir of what should constitute as an astronomy literacy book. So you would want all the concepts in here to be known by everyone. So this book in particular, we are trying to again get translated into various different languages and then put these translations into a graphical form. Together with HBCSE, we have also been working on a booklet which gathers articles about positional astronomy and astronomy in general, which can then be taken to students. So this book was in the first iteration done in Marathi, and now we are going to translate it to different languages, and we would like all of your help in order to do so. And finally, there's the astronomy glossary, which is also being developed by the OAE. And what we are doing at the OAE Center India is to try to get this astronomy glossary developed into a graphical deck of cards. So rather than just having a set of astronomical terms and their definitions, you also have pictures to go together with them. We are also promoting astronomy in curricula. In particular, the postdoctoral scholars who are working with us, one at IUCAA and one at HBCSE, they are trying to carry out a baseline survey for the status of astronomy education in India. In particular, we would like to understand the interest and perception about astronomy in school-going students. We would like to know what is their understanding of astronomy topics, what are their desires to know about the different topics in astronomy, and then we would also like to know how far they know about how to get into a career in astronomy. So in order to understand these questions, we have carried out a baseline survey, and it has been carried out in about 30 different schools in states that you can see highlighted over these maps. And in particular, we would like to thank a lot of the ASI members who have helped us out in order to take this survey all over India. And we would like to take your help in order to make all of the country green. In addition to that, we have also been promoting astronomy in curricula by creating this list of concepts which are essential to understand different astronomy topics which are taught in schools. In particular, this list, we try to combine it with the astronomy textbooks that exist today in different state boards, and we would like to grade the textbooks and assess these textbooks in order to figure out whether there are any deficiencies in these existing textbooks that need to be addressed. So there are various astronomers, education researchers, as well as school teachers, which we are going to ask to grade the content in these textbooks. In order to do networking and outreach, we have of course been working with the ASI POEC. As you know, last year we conducted a very lively session on public outreach and education, which was well attended. And this year now we have all these parallel sessions which are going on at the ASI. So ASI has been helping us out a lot. Together with ASI, we also contributed towards the organization of the astronomy booth that happened in Busan in 2022. We'll of course also help out in the 2024 edition. Annually, we have also been involved in the organization of the IAU Shaw Prize Workshop. This particular workshop brings in teachers from all over the world so that they can share their experiences with all of you. So I encourage you to look after or to look at this IIU Shoprise workshop and also try to attend that. In addition to that, we have been making booths available at the G20 exhibition that happened in Pune. So we are a part of a global network of centers and nodes. You can see the names listed out here. And we try to have regular meetings with all of these companions so that we can share the knowledge that we learn with each other and to promote astronomy all over the world. So what we would like you to do is to get in touch with us. We would like to have volunteers who can help us out with the various activities that I mentioned here. You can go to our website, which is listed here, or just get in touch with us by email, either me or Aniket Soy. Okay? With that, I would pass it on to Aniket, who will also tell us more about one other activity that has been going on.
Yeah, thank you, Surut. So I'm just going to say a few words about a new series which we have just started from last month. We are calling it Astronomy Concept Series, which the first videos we launched on 1st January. So this is just 1 month old project. The idea is that people, especially school students, want to get more content. There is a lot of content available, but a lot of it also has many conceptual errors, online content. And although there are long lectures available, nowadays the trend among students is to watch shorter videos. So we are making smaller chunks. Typical, we are striving to keep the median video length about 10 minutes or slightly smaller than that. And at school level, that is class 11-12 level, we want to pitch these videos. Some few videos are already there. You can scan the QR code and check the list if you want. So the target audience is high school plus early undergraduate students and plus school teachers who need supplementary or training materials and amateur astronomers. So as I mentioned, the format is YouTube videos with average length of about 10 minutes. Each video will focus on one concept or a cluster of concepts. Say eclipses will be different video, seasons will be different video, and so on. And what we strive to do is create subtitles for each video in as many languages as possible, so that although the original video is in English, people from the students who are not in English medium schools, even they can benefit from this video. And what we want your support for is, we cannot create subtitles in all these languages. We have the English subtitles available. So if you would like to volunteer and translate these subtitles in, say, other languages, please contact us and help us translate these subtitles. And also, although we are starting with basic topics, eventually we would like to cover almost all areas of astronomy. So if you would like to join and be speaker for some of the videos, you are most welcome to. Thanks. Neeraj?
There's a PDF, right? Thank you to POEC for giving us a platform to talk about two fairly interesting and novel education outreach efforts. Novel for research institutes, not for the outreach community. But
your eyes are better than mine. You find this behind.
I'm wearing the wrong glasses. So.
Right. Okay, so that's the PDF file.
Okay. And then, how do you go to full screen?
Can you help me make it full screen, please?
I'm sorry, he can't see properly and I have my wrong glasses. So it's fantastic. So you should call radio astronomers. Anyway, I'll start. So I'm going to talk about two projects which IAA is leading. One is the Hanle Dark Sky Reserve in Ladakh, and the other is the Cosmos Mysore initiative. And so he's given me 7 minutes, so I'm going to try and equitably distribute resources to the north and south. So the Hanle Dark Sky Reserve, of course, is in Ladakh up here, and Cosmos Mysore is in the Mysore region, or at least the Mysore district. I'm going to give you a very, very brief overview. But then, if you missed Dorje's talk earlier this week, I urge you to run tomorrow at 4 p.m. to the planetarium. He's going to give a public talk on the Hanle Dark Sky Reserve and his astrophotography, so do not miss it. That will give you a lot more insight into the project. And tomorrow's outreach parallel session, you're going to have a talk by Amogavarsha, who is the project associate for the outreach session. For the outreach program of Cosmos Mysore. So tomorrow, for tomorrow's outreach session, a talk on the Cosmos Mysore project, and tomorrow 4:30 planetarium on the Hanle Dark Sky Reserve as well. So I'm going to present this on behalf of both the teams now. So Hanle Dark Sky Reserve is what we boldly call a science-based sustainable socio-economic development project, and I'll try to convince you that each of those terms are probably true. And the motto, the logo, the slogan for the reserve is "Come for the mountains and stay for the stars." And we hope you do that. So Hanle Dark Sky Reserve is so of course you know that we chose Hanle because IAA runs an observatory there, the Indian Astronomical Observatory. It has 2 optical NIR telescopes and 2 Cherenkov telescopes, and many more telescopes are being planned to come there. So it is a site for astronomy, for professional research, and therefore it is important that we preserve the site for the next couple of decades as well. Therefore, our original motivation to enter this game was very, very selfish. We wanted to make sure light pollution, which was slowly increasing, did not increase further. But then I think very soon it became a much larger project, a more comprehensive project, which involved the local community and the UT Ladakh administration fairly extensively in the form of astrotourism, which we initially didn't really know much about, local livelihood support, and light management. And I can tell you how these go hand in hand. At the center of Hanle Dark Sky Reserve is astrotourism and what we call the light management plan. The first and the most important component, of course, is local community livelihood, which is what is anchoring the whole plan, where we have selected 24 people from the local communities in the villages surrounding the observatory. They're trained as astrotourism guides, and they've been provided telescopes, and because they attract astrotourists who are regular tourists who go to Ladakh for adventure or wildlife, etc. There are also increasing number of homestays and other hospitality and service industries in these 5 villages in the HDSR region. Secondly, we have visitors coming to Ladakh. Is an increasingly popular destination for tourists for many, many years now, and the domestic tourism in Ladakh is increasing even further after COVID, and therefore tourists who come there get exposed to the night sky, to astronomy, to a science-based tourism initiative, one of the first of this kind in India, at least in astronomy, and as well as a haven for amateur astronomers. We recently had the first star party last October, and we plan to have a HDSR star party every October, the week of the new moon, so you're all invited to come there with your oxygen cylinders next year. Third component, of course, is IAO, the observatory itself, where we want to preserve dark skies for our observations with our telescopes, but then concomitant with that is an initiative to spread STEM in Ladakh schools, so working with the UT Ladakh administration, education department, etc., to promote astronomy and therefore also science in the schools in Ladakh. And I think next month we're going to start offering a course on astrotourism as a skill development course, first in Ladakh, and later it will be applicable all over India. This is to train people from other parts of India, because now we're getting queries from other state governments saying, can we set up something similar in their region, and can you come and train us, and so on. And the fourth component, of course, is the governmental support component, which is fairly unique to us if you look at dark sky reserves across the globe, where they have funded all the material for light management and the local infrastructure, and also promote integrated tourism, where the wildlife tourism and the hiking tourism is kind of combined with astronomy tourism, right? So just a few points. I'll just go through very quickly. We're not inventing tourism, right? Ladakh already gets 60% revenue from it, but we want to add a component of astrotourism to whatever is happening there, and therefore that's why we're training astrotourism guides there. It's not an easy location, but then that's part of the challenge. And this is something important. I mean, astronomy observatories in general like to be left alone. We're like, don't come here, we do our thing, you stay outside, especially if you have telescopes here. But then there's I think HDS is an example of how when we need local support or community support, we need to offer them something in return. And I think this kind of a very symbiotic relationship is exemplified by HDSR. So like I said again, please go to Dorje's talk tomorrow. The second program is in the south. It's in Mysore, centered in Mysore city, but it's right now kind of encompassing the entire district. So Cosmos Mysore will be the world's first independent LED dome planetarium. What I mean by that is all planetaria you know so far in the world have a projector, central projector with a passive dome. The projector used to be analog or optomechanical, now it's digital or hybrid and so on. But then this is going to be the first dome independently functioning in the world where there's no projector at all, but the dome itself is going to be made of LED panels, and therefore they are completely computer controlled, and therefore that gives you a lot more freedom to do what you want to on the dome, right? You don't have to make a show months in advance and then store it in the projector and so on. You could do things within a few hours, a few days notice. You have a lot more to play around with. And the quality, of course, is going to be much better. I think we've seen the difference in quality between that screen and this screen is exactly the difference in quality which is between Mysore and the other planetaria so far, right? So IIA is constructing this planetarium with the support from a lot of governmental agencies, and planetarium is under construction right now. We plan to kind of roughly finish it by the end of the year, hopefully. But then associated outreach program has been underway for more than a year and a half. And Amog is sitting right there. So we have the two prongs to the outreach program for Cosmos Mysore. One is the regular outreach in education, which Amog is heading. He's based in Mysore. And the other one is the history of astronomy, which Puneet is heading. He's sitting right at the very back. They can raise your hand and say hello, right? So Amog is giving a detailed talk tomorrow in the outreach session. So the three main parts to what we're doing in Mysore so far, guest lectures in STEM for BSc and MSc students, mostly not just astronomy, but physics and even biology recently. So we invite people or support people who are coming to Bangalore or elsewhere to come to Mysore, give talks to MSc students, not just for the university, but for other colleges and so on. And that's been continuing for a year and a half. Many public events like we typically do, night sky watching events, things for Zero Shadow Day, Asteroid Day, and so on and so forth, right? Outreach talks and so on. And a very big component is rural outreach in districts. This we do in collaboration with two projects that already exist in Mysore. One is a part of the university, other is called Kutuhali, which was funded by Vinyan Prasad till recently. And therefore, a large component of this is rural outreach, especially in Kannada. The second component is the history of astronomy in Kannada. In Kannada, primarily, this is led by Puneet and Shailaja, and they have a poster outside on one of the recent manuscripts they have finished analyzing. So it's on the manuscript called Laghu Manasa Vyakya. So please go take a look. The poster will be up till tomorrow afternoon. This project aims to identify is unearth, really, transcribe, translate, analyze old manuscripts in astronomy, starting from 17th century back to 9th century or what have you. These are available in a multitude of scripts, multitude of languages. So it's a huge undertaking involving astronomy, linguistics, history, culture, etc., etc. You have to put together all of these fields in order to make sense of what's available. Some of them are palmly, some of them are in old paper. And the idea is to then publish these analysis and put all the translations, photocopies, etc. on a public directory for other researchers of history of astronomy to use. So among the outreach events we've been happening in Mysore, there's a rough distribution, and Amog will talk about it more in detail tomorrow. So you can see that we kind of ticked all the usual outreach boxes, but a lot of it has been happening for the first time in the district to a large extent, right? Need 1 minute. Yeah, I'm almost done. So when the planetarium starts operation, we're going to take this outreach program to a slightly different level. We're going to start, because the LED dome and you can program it much easier with your computers, we're going to try and see if you can use the dome directly for astronomy data visualization, data analysis, and so on, and not just astronomy, but also spread it to other STEM fields, right? It'll be a hub for student training workshops. We have 2 classrooms. One of them will be a computer classroom. The idea is to use this for training workshops, not just in Mysore, but nationally. And because, again, it's a LED dome planetarium, we want to have student projects develop their own shows, right? If you have a small concept, you could even be a PhD student. If you're doing your PhD and you finished your PhD and you're really proud of your work, you want to make a 5-minute clip as a planetarium show to explain what you've done for your PhD, you're welcome. Come and join us, and you can do that. So all of that is something we'll be enabling. For the history of astronomy projects, Puneet has identified 40 manuscripts, of which only 2 have been done. So the remaining 38 are going to happen over the next few years, so that's a huge undertaking. The idea is to create an online library of all of these manuscripts and their translations, transcription, photograph, analysis, etc., etc. And we hope that then we can also become a nodal point for research in the history of astronomy in India, not just in Kannada, but also in other languages. And so I'll stop with this. We are organizing a program, a conference on astrotourism in March in Bangalore, and in a couple of weeks there's going to be an astronomy Olympiad through HBCSE in Mysore, specifically for teachers in that region. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Neeraj. Can I request Aniket, Surut to come up on stage, and also all the POEC members, core committee and associate members and volunteers who are around. We'll just have a group photo with all of you. Thank you. Are there any questions that they would like to ask? Maybe we have 1 or 2 minutes. In case you have, just grab a mic and ask while you're on stage. Shall we get the ASI backdrop? Shall we get the ASI backdrop? If you can find the file. If you can find the file, yeah. Stop here. Can you just check if you can get that out?
Hi, just didn't catch where in Mysore the planetarium will be.
Yeah, it will be in the University of Mysore campus, but not the main campus, but so it's a beautiful location, and construction is happening as we speak. Yeah. So it's basically, I think, 3 or 4 kilometers outside the city, but the University of Mysore campus. Yeah.
So, hello, yeah. So I wanted to ask about astronomer at residence program.
Sorry, I'm trying to do echolocation. There, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so for astronomer in residence program, is it open only to ASI member?
No, it's open to anybody.
So we can just go to the ASI
as long as you're a professional astronomer, I mean, somewhere associated with an organization. It's not open only to ASI members.
Thank you.
Hi, Varun here, all the way at the back, to your right.
We can hear you.
Yes.
We can't see
so, for a lot of these, student volunteers are going to be quite helpful, even when you're talking about translations, about all sorts of programs. Students, usually it would be good if we can have some kind of an incentive structure. I'm not talking about monetary necessarily. That would be infeasible.
Excellent. Give us some money.
No. So before you objected, I already said I'm not saying monetary, right? But it could be in terms of exposure. It could be in giving them access. Maybe just hosting a small 2-day session where they get to interact with astronomers, projects, whatever. But some kind of thing which can incentivize students, recognition of some sorts. Would actually
we can
help
always
in
give them
pooling.
a certificate. We do give them some incentives, sometimes even monetary incentives. It's really based on which organization is doing it and whether they have money to spare. It's not a lot, but if you have undergraduate students and a lot, ISERs and IITs have a lot of undergraduate students, even if you give them 5,000 rupees for translating a resource, that's still a lot of money for them. And we sometimes do this.
So at IUCA, we are also happy to support basically some of these students who can come over to do translation. So we can keep like a week-long or a few-day-long workshops, especially. Exactly. Yeah.
2 days summer school kind of thing, and then only those people who complete 20 pages of translation are allowed to register. Something like that is also
worked. Okay, maybe we can, for the sake of time, we can take this up discussion later. I will just quick last comment.
Comment regarding one item in education: careers in astronomy. In the spirit of yesterday's session on today's industry and academia, careers that can take off from astronomy would be a better thing to include.
Yeah, sure.
Instead of careers in astronomy, careers that can take off from astronomy.
Yeah,
the skill sets you get at.
Right, in principle, both are important. But what we realized is also like students not having the knowledge of what exactly to do, what are the kind of career paths. And once, of course, you do your PhDs, you are not limited to just careers, the standard academic careers, indeed.
Yeah, just one small clarification. The OE activities are focused on high school students and below. We are not looking at UG and PG students. So right now we are not worried about the question, if you get trained in astronomy, but you don't want to move to industry, then what? Right now, we look at school students who are interested in astronomy, but they don't know how to become an astronomer. We're just looking at that set.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we would like to, that's why it's astronomy for education. So we'd like to use astronomy to get people into science education in general. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone. Let's move forward while this quick thing is being taken, because we have 1 more hour of program and I would like you all to stay here for this 1 hour. So let's not delay it anymore. Please go ahead.
Slide just got deleted. Which one did you
Sorry, I'm jumping in and advertising this conference. Oh, you don't have to go there. So there's this conference on astronomy, communicating astronomy to the public, and this is an annual conference supported by the IAU. So any of the outreach people, communicators, or people who are interested in, okay, it's gone, but it's in June in Toulouse, France. So please find out about it. It's called CAP, Communicating Astronomy with the Public 2024, and it would be great if the Indian activities are highlighted, because there are so many which are unsung and doing really great work. So please look at it, register for it, submit your abstracts. There are also ample grants and waivers available. So I think it will be a good show from India's side, at least, if we can participate in this international forum. Thank you.
After this.
Okay, so let's move forward. We have the WGGE session, and I will hand it over to Arunima to coordinate.
Thank you. So good evening. I am Arunima Banerjee from ISET Tirupati, and on behalf of the Working Group for Gender Equity, I welcome you all to this session. In September 2015, the Executive Council of Astronomical Society of India approved the formation of a working group for gender equity to address issues related to gender equity within the astronomy and astrophysics community of India. Towards that end, WGGE has been actively organizing sensitization programs in the form of the Andamani Lecture Series, mentorship workshops for PhD students and postdocs, and panel discussions, amongst others, over the years. You can get to know more about us and our activities in our website and our YouTube channel. So the agenda today, we have 2 items on the agenda today. So Dr. Arubari from ISER Mohali will be introducing the Karinas to you, which will be followed by a panel discussion on spousal hiring policies in academia, conflict of interest and versus equal opportunity practices, chaired by Professor Suchetana Chatterjee from Presidency University. So I request Aru to take over.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Aru from ISER Mohali. So this talk is on behalf of the founding members of Karinas. Am I audible? Okay. So yeah, so I'll be talking about Karinas or introducing Karinas, and thanks to the previous session, Professor Nandi, who has already given a brief introduction and encouraged everyone to be part of Karinas, or rather follow Karinas group, and they do have the website and available online. And the founding members of Karinas are Prakriti Pal Chaudhary, Manami, and Sanskriti. So these were the founding members who actually made this non-profit organization, and keeping in mind that it's the time and it's also requirement for us to get together and for the having this gender equity as a norm. And this coming to the slides of the talk. The motivation of forming such organization was from this one of the talk, which the founding members have been following, by talk by Professor Shobana Narsimham, and where this particular plot basically demonstrates the woman, or rather a percentage of women concentration in different parts of the world, and clearly it highlights that there is a unfair gender equality or equity, rather the proportion is not, there's not fair balance between a men and a woman ratio when it comes to a higher position or even in women in science or STEM careers. So again, from those talks, which was by Professor Shobana, they have collected some statistics about numbers from different institutes. For example, on the left-hand side, we have a bar plot where we have the percentages of the women scientists at different institutes, from DBT, ICMAR, and other DST, DE institutes, and all highlights the percentage of the women in each institute are not in a fair balance. And again, on the right-hand side, we have another percentage or rather fractional plot demonstrating the fraction of women versus men in different institutes. And they have also verified this data with the updated audit which is conducted by WGGE group. And it's consistent with those plots which were demonstrated in the talk by Professor Shobana. And that also clearly demonstrates in different institutes in India when it comes to the faculty, women faculty to men faculty ratio, it's not, again, a fair balance. In fact, some of the elite institutes in India do not really have, high number of women faculty. So again, this plot basically highlights there is a waterfall sort of thing when it comes from having a PhDs, number of PhDs who are women compared to the women when it comes to higher positions. So again, the importance of formation of, or rather, what was the need or necessity for forming this group, Karinas, comes from this image that since it is a men-dominated STEM careers or a science or a physics profession, generally they can socialize more and discuss so many issues or agenda, while in this image it clearly demonstrates that there's a woman sitting in isolation. So that also basically tell us the need or the requirement of such semi-informal organization. And this group has been doing a lot of efforts towards, I will be discussing about some of the activities which have been carried out by Karinas. And the mandate was suggested by Dr. Mayuri. And so these founding members had this mandate of Karinas to empower early career women researchers in India and first generation Indian women scientists outside the country throughout networking, mentorship, and collaboration. We aim to address gender inequity in a bottom-up approach and collaborate with other national and international organizations, example WGGE, to amplify our impact. And this is the logo and a website screenshot which they have posted, and currently there are 250 current members of Karinas. And again, this plot basically shows a sort of a distribution or demographics of members of Karina from across globe. So they have, the members are spread across 6 continents and in 25 nations, with 86 early career researchers and 41 within India and 45 outside India. So they do have different science and technical backgrounds. So this, the right plot basically shows, again, the number of women who are at different career stages within and outside India. So it basically shows the ratio or the proportion of your postdocs and the PhD and faculty at different career stages and how many people are there outside India and within India. So coming to the activities of Karinas, they have been doing this quarterly newsletters, and the first newsletter was in October 23, and they have highlighted 3 generations of women scientists, and they have highlighted their write-ups and interviews which they carried out during these activities in this newsletter. And they are expecting the second newsletter to be coming up soon in February 24, so keep your eyes open for the next newsletter, where they will be highlighting or featuring Professor Jocelyn Bell, who has led the discovery of pulsar, and then Professor Samita Mathur, which will be published in the upcoming newsletter. So coming towards the next activity, they are holding this monthly colloquium activities, colloquium series, and which is in which they invite distinguished speakers from different parts of the globe. And so far, they have invited Professor Annapurni, Professor Preeti Kharp, and Professor Prajwal. And in their upcoming colloquium sessions, they are going to invite Sarbani Basu, Professor Archana Pai. So yeah, again, I would encourage everyone to really follow up these talks, and they are highly motivational and also will encourage other people to really support this group and in general help us in bringing gender equity, which is the essence or the need of the hour. So another activities which they're carrying out is collecting the publications which have come out from the members of the Karina's group, and they basically highlight and put it there on their website as well. And they do have a planned upcoming activities, which is more of a having a support network, a more active support network, having a more formal, informal discussions, and try to bring about new suggestions or ways to take over or follow up those things. And finally, I would say, Karina's is a really sort of a encouraging platform for all of us, and also it is really a sort of a these members have really done a fantastic job of having this platform, because we really required, and since it has members across all generations, so it really helps to have knowledge and information between different members at different career stages and get ideas, suggestions, and also sometimes leads to motivation to keep carrying on at different stages. With this, I would like to thanks to Astronomical Society of India for featuring Karina's on the website. And Karina's group also would like to thank WGGE group to giving this platform to share their exciting journey. And Karina's group also is grateful to 16 core team members of Karina's, including the founding members. And it's a non-profit organization, as I already mentioned. And so any sort of help or any sort of donation and will be highly appreciated and acknowledged by the Karina's group. And all those expenditure, etc., are well maintained on the website, which is there. And if you have any queries or any doubts, please do write to the Karina's group at karinas.cosmos@astrow@gmail.com. And yeah, your contribution will be highly appreciated, and that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Arunima, Aru, the ASI, LOC, and the SOC for giving us the WGG session, and all the people who are present here. So we are running a little late, but as we heard from Aru's talk, and I'm sure this has been discussed widely for many years now, that the representation of women, whenever we talk about gender equity, there is a conflict that should we always consider gender to be binary. So I have to apologize to all of you for seeing it in a binary way. That's not the right thing to do. But here, when I say gender, I actually mean male and female. So you have to pardon me for that. Now, the concern that we saw in Dr. Arubedi's presentation was that all across institutions, just not in India, but all over India, we have underrepresentation of women in the faculty. Well, it's much better at the student level, but as we go to higher levels in the faculty tier, the representation gets worse. Now, today's panel discussion has a very specific title. It's about spousal hiring policies, the aspect of equal opportunity and conflict of interest. Many of us are faculty members working in public institutions, and we are all probably very familiar with the equal opportunity aspect of any employment that is, that is guaranteed by the Constitution and the Government of India. And then, of course, there is the issue of conflict of interest, and spousal hiring particularly will focus on that, but it also extends to sort of hiring family members in a given institution or in a given department, and where these two aspects actually are in conflict with each other. And so one might think that why are we bringing it in the WGGE session? I would say that it's integrally linked with the topic of today's panel discussion, because as we saw that the underrepresentation of women in the faculty in different departments and institutions, let's say all over India, there has been recently in the last 6 months or a year, there has been special recruitment drives in institutions all across India. It just started where the departments are specifically asked to go hire women faculty, okay? And so we'll discuss these issues in the context of today's panel discussion. But even before that, in my last 10 years in Indian academia as a faculty member, I have interacted with many of my senior colleagues and now with my junior colleagues or my peers, and we have heard these stories that how difficult it was, the two-body problem that many of us, probably many in the audience also have faced over years. And so all this under the umbrella of today's panel discussion, I think we do not have much time, but we will try to address these issues from a policy point of view. And for that, we have two very distinguished panelists today. So we have, who have been in leadership positions and many top committees in institutions and in national committees, and are very experienced about how to deal with these issues in institutions. So I would like to welcome our distinguished panelists, Professor, who do not need any introduction. So Professor Annapurni Subramanian, who's the director of Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and Professor Jasjit Singh Bagla, who has been a very senior professor at IISER Mohali and is now the acting dean. Both of them have humongous experience about dealing with these kinds of issues, and we would like to hear from them, as well as the audience today who were there, about what, as a community, we think about this problem and how we can alleviate some of the difficulties that these issues brought us. So welcome everyone. Welcome Professor Annapurni and Professor Bagla. So, I think first we will just hear from our panelists. I mean, probably I could highlight the issue that why is this an issue where the equal opportunity thing comes? Because our candidature or how are we as a potential faculty candidate or potential job interviewee is only dependent on our quality or our CV. It doesn't matter if we are married to someone or if we are brother or sister or children of somebody, husband or wife, that doesn't matter. That has no connection with our status as an applicant. Yet, there is this issue that we always hear that, oh, how there can be conflict of interest if somebody of the same family is hired, there can be, unfairness, etc. So on this note, we would like to hear the views of our panelists, and I would go Professor Annapurni first, and then we will hear from Professor Bagla.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me here. Actually, my comments, I love to wear two hats, so I'll wear them one at a time. Yeah, so I'll have to wear the hat of a woman scientist, and I also have to wear the hat of the head of the organization. So if I wear the hat of the head of the organization, so what happens is you have to play a fair game, I mean so-called fair game, with respect to all the applications you get. And what you get is based on the standard check boxes for performances to be graded. And as one goes, you have to pick up based on performance. You take a person as a candidate to perform, and then you take it as a candidate, and then you shortlist this. So gender doesn't come into place, but what actually comes into place is how much time a person has got to perform that much of activity. So let's say if you have got a PhD time, and then you got an experience of 4 years or 5 years or whatever, we should all keep in mind that that is the time when one tries to build a family, get married or have a child or something like that, because your career and your family are going hand in hand. It's a package deal. So who gets to spend more time investing in building the family? Is it equal? It is not. So when it comes to the application, as I'm wearing the hat of the head of an organization, I do not have any leverage to say that you have to keep actually 2 more years for someone to get that particular same quality, right? So either you work 200% of your time to achieve the same goal, or you have to actually take some time. We have to accept that women have to put in extra number of hours to reach the same pace or more than to prove yourself to be competent enough at that same level. You don't get it. So even if you get a woman applicant and a male applicant, there would be definitely, some amount of, we can't give, even if you want to give, you won't be able to give it. So it has to be put it in the policy matter. It is very important. And when it comes to as a wearing the hat of institution head, you have to make sure that there is no, I'll just want to elaborate what do you mean by conflict of interest. If there is a reporting structure in the organization, then a family member reporting to another family member can definitely cause a conflict of interest, or in the sense that favoritism can happen. So even in case of decision making, when a group is involved, when 2 people come together who have, otherwise know each other better, then the decision making gets affected. So in any organizational matter, if 2 people have, this need not be a husband and wife situation, it could be a family member situation. There would be decisions which can get affected. So the organization has to be aware of it, sensitive of it. And I also have talked to corporate people. How do they handle it? There, the situation is different. They say that, oh, you talk about, you already know that they're married. But in our case, they actually join and then they get married. Then the problem of how to make sure that there is no conflict of interest there. So they kind of change them and put them in different reporting structure or different departments or different places. Then they come back, no, that's not possible. So this is a problem everywhere to make sure that the conflict of interest is not taken care. But I'm saying that if you hire 2 people, you need to take them at the same level and give them same respect. And it should not happen that someone is given a job and then given a feel that there is, you have given some discount or you're giving some favorism there. And that person should not suffer for the entire career based on that particular thing. So it's not easy to do it. As a woman, if I take a look at it, I strongly believe that at a hiring stage and at all stages, there should be extra time provided with respect to that particular framework, and that has to be built in. If you do not build in, it is difficult for the people who process the application to actually ensure it and impose it.
Thank you so much, Pumi. So maybe you have one.
Thank you. So should I go ahead? Yeah, thanks, Annapurni. We have pretty much covered most of the points. But can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So, but I think I will go over some of these things maybe with a slightly different perspective, and also talk about what I think are the best practices we can try to follow. When we talk about spousal hearing, one of the things to consider in an institution is whether they are in the same field or different fields. In institutions where I have worked, there have been multiple departments. So sometimes you get applications where the two people are in different departments. Sometimes you get applications where they're in the same department. And one acid test of equal opportunity in any institution. See, even if an institution does open its doors to hiring couples or relatives, one acid test for equal opportunity is in case they don't hire both, are they always hiring men? Are they always hiring women? Or is it happening with more or less equal probability? Okay. So that I think is something which people who should keep an eye out for to make sure that equity is not being compromised. Now, conflict of interest becomes serious in case of the same field, because then if they are at the same level, whenever they come up for promotions, next level of appointments, various other things, and it becomes very hard to differentiate. And again, the same test for equity should apply. But it does become hard, and I have seen heads of institutions who do hire couples or relatives to encourage them to essentially go into slightly different areas so that they don't have an overlap which creates a problem for them later on. Now, institutions on paper always will say that they treat each application on its individual merits, but sometimes there is an implicit understanding that they are considering applications as a pair. And I think that is not a good idea. Institutions also should bend over backwards to demonstrate that they are treating each application individually, because otherwise there is social stigma for the junior partner, as Annapurni mentioned, and that can create multiple problems at later stages. And another thing which we have to remember is that we are dealing with human beings, which means that if there is an impression given that it is a hiring of a couple, then there can even be chance of exploitation from both sides. So one has to keep that in mind. Conflict of interest in joint presence on committees, especially doctoral monitoring committees, is serious. And we have had, not just in India, but internationally, we have had many instances of groups developing a somewhat toxic structure, because you have a doctoral committee which is dominated by family members, and therefore students don't see any way to go and complain or a recourse for redressal in case there is a disagreement. And there is, of course, a power structure. So this is something which institutions have to watch out for. Then there is this issue of perceived conflict of interest if both are given executive positions. So this is in contrast with what Annapurni was mentioning, that one reporting to the other. But larger institutions may have a number of executive positions. And there can be an impression which people carry that if there are two people from the same family in executive positions, then there is too much concentration of power. Note that this is a very strong function of the nature of the couple in question as well as other colleagues, because it will differ from one case to the other. But this is something where institutions may need to formulate a policy, and also try to ensure equity in the sense that whenever they have to pick one out of two, it should not always be one same person getting picked up for positions. Now, many of these points also depend on the size of the department or institution. So my suggestion for good practices would be to treat each individual strictly on merit, encourage family members to get involved heavily in collaborations so that there are ways to differentiate their performance easily. And in case they are working in same or similar areas, the institutions should ensure participation of other colleagues in doctoral monitoring committees and other committees. In case of being at dissimilar levels, one has to ensure that the senior person is not involved either in reporting or in controlling or in any discussions relating to promotions, appointments, etc. Others also must treat individuals on their own merit. There is often a tendency to caution each and every action and statement in case there is a couple in a department, whereas no such scrutiny may be given for two non-spouse collaborators or friends who may also form a team or a power center. The last point I would like to make is that Annapurni mentioned about time, as women have often contribute more to family in the formative stages. So in some institutions, I know that they have a policy that in case there is a break, that break is explicitly counted out. So I know. So that is a policy which I am aware of, and that policy can also lead to somewhat strange situations, but this is not the forum for that. So there has to be some flexibility. One issue which has cropped up in many discussions is that in last 6 or 7 years, many institutions in India who are hiring faculty members have started imposing an age limit of 35 for entry level. This has come essentially following a directive from the Government of India. But if you read the letters carefully, it is coming in as a guideline, which means you don't have to follow it very, very strictly. And the way out is to not put the age limit in the advertisement. The moment you put it in the advertisement, then you have to follow that. Okay? So you can keep it as an internal guideline and try to be flexible on this count. And this is something which can help people who have taken longer to reach a given stage. Particularly in teaching institutions, retirement age is 65. So even if someone joins a little bit later than 35, they will still be contributing more than 25 years to the institution. So it is not that they will not have that much time to give to the institution. So these are things which we need to keep in mind. I'll stop here.
So thanks a lot, Punni and Jasjit. So I guess, so I think we heard about some suggestions from both the panelists. Now, my next question would be that, is there any universal or government level policies regarding, I mean, there can be fantastic leaders in a particular, people in leadership positions in a particular institution, and they could be doing great job with the applications and with these issues. But that might not be the case when they are gone, or might not be the case all over institutions in India. So I would just cite an example. This is an institution where there was a special recruitment drive, and the faculty member for women faculty, and the faculty members were informally told that we strongly discourage applications from your spouses. So, I mean, things like that are I mean, somebody in a leadership position or somebody in any position, holding any public position, can never say that one cannot apply just because they are wives or husbands or family members of some faculty of their institutions, right? That's a gross violation of equal opportunity issues. So the question would be that, is there any guiding policy, or it only just depends on the good intent of our colleagues who are in leadership positions? So that might be a very important thing to consider, because if it only depends on the intent of, conscious people, then when they are not gone, when they are retired, or if they are not in one institution, then these practices will not be like universal. So what is your take on, any of you, what is your take on this? What should we do about it? Because clearly a policy probably doesn't exist, or does it?
No, the policy doesn't exist, but then these are unwritten rules, and also the unwritten framework with which we are built in gives you a thinking which automatically says that you don't give a confidence to that particular application, right? So it is just the same thing as why do you have less women in hired, right? So is it commensurate with the number of applications? Did you get enough applications? How many applications you got? How many are success rates, right? Is it the same for men? So you have to actually ask that question. So when you look at institutions which you don't have any women, then did they get applications? Did they hire? If they don't hire, why? So then we can actually address this question of, was there any specific expectation from the organization which is not met, right? So similarly, in this case, there could be unwritten rules or unwritten perceptions where by hiring two people, you might land up in problem. I don't want to get into a problem in future. I do not know what. But let's not get into trouble. How do you eliminate? Eliminate the woman, take the man from that particular candidate list. So your problem right now is solved. And someone will not come and tell you that, oh my God, you created a problem for the future, for the entire institute. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to take that burden? So unless you break this kind of a perception and saying that, okay, let's take it as a candidate, both are worth it, give it, if there's an issue with the conflict of interest, that can be dealt later. So so that has to be brought in. Mostly it is unwritten rule, discomfort, fearing some problem in the future. So that has to be stopped and say that, okay, let's take it as a candidate and we have to solve it, is what I feel. I thought of something else, but I forgot in between.
I agree. Constitutionally, there is absolutely nothing which any institution can do to prevent two family members from applying or to be considered for positions. So these are all fears. And the other aspect is that, especially in academics, hiring involves judgment. Okay? It cannot be boiled down to just checking a few boxes. And therefore, many of these fears can often be rationalized or rather given a rational appearance in terms of how you are looking at CVs or interpretation. So sitting in selection committees, you may hear the same argument for one candidate and against another candidate. That can happen. And it is also up to the mid-level people in any given institution to try to persuade the top tier in case they have this fear. So there was an institution where we were having a discussion, and the director felt that it is not a good idea to have family members because there is a serious conflict of interest. So we pointed out that what will you do if two people join the institute and then get married, like the corporate example that you were talking about. And the director tried to poo-poo the idea that this cannot happen because by the time people join, they are all married. Yeah. Thankfully for that particular institution, two people who had joined the faculty the previous year got married a week after this discussion. So that kind of deflated the balloon, and it was possible to overcome this fear. But it is there, and sometimes senior leadership, people in senior leadership positions articulate it so you can catch it more easily. But sometimes may they do it so implicitly that you don't even catch it. That is why whenever anyone tries to bring this up, it is important to ask them the question that if 8 couples applied and you are not hiring couples, how many women have you hired out of those?
Thank you so much. So as both the panelists said, that nothing prevents any institution from asking an applicant that no, we cannot consider you here because you're somebody related to your family is in this institution. So these are two it's completely non-coupled things, uncoupled things. But we still hear these horrendous stories. I don't know. So my next question would be, and then maybe we can have a little bit more discussion and open the floor for questions. So, I mean, I myself have never faced anything like that, at least not explicitly. But I have heard from several colleagues. I mean, there was a story, a colleague told me that she was told, this was a woman faculty, she was told that, oh, you know, how can we, your husband is in some different institution, how can you take the job here? It will not be possible for you to take the job here. Or examples like, oh, how can we give the 2 jobs to the same family member in the same institution? So my question would be that, is this something that existed mostly in the past, like 10, 15 years back, and now the situation is better? Or do you think that it's still a big matter of concern? I mean, what would be your, because you have been probably seeing it at a much deeper level than I have just heard stories. So do you think that it existed more in the past and we are improving? Or do you think it's still a same level of matter of concern today also? So
I can't comment on whether it is worse or improved or things like that, but from the institution like Indian Institute of Astrophysics, we had couples there in the institute, and I think they performed pretty, we didn't have any issues as such, but we haven't, in my tenure as a director, we haven't come across this thing as such. But I would point out in terms of trying ways to, I would put it in a different way, that the reluctance to hire a woman as a faculty can come out in whichever, I mean, many forms, right? So you can actually say that maybe if I hire you, I may not get the actual time from you as a male colleague. Or, so these are not articulated and said in so many words, but these are like kind of thinking in the background, and the recommendations, it reflects in the recommendation. So you will have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? So a very frank question would be, like, I mean, I don't know, it's like completely very drastic, radical thinking. Just like the double-blind review we talk about in review, peer review, right? So you say, reviewer, I do not know, but the reviewer knows the author's name. So it should be a double-blind, right? Why should the reviewer know the author's name? So let it be double-blind. So like there's an application, would you like to say that it is, because it's, at least at the scientific level, would you like to say that it is a woman or a male to break it? But it's not possible because you also take care of, where you come from, your history has to be done, so it is inbuilt. So I think somewhere that the question has to be put in that you hire, not based on the gender, but based on the performance. And at the performance, again, the time limit has to be given, because at the same rate, sometimes it's not possible to perform, and it can't be, you can't be criminalized for that. And to add to it, they could be like, when newer and the generations change and you have younger people coming in, all the institutions should have a tag of saying that, yes, we have the, history of hiring women, and we are good, and we actually treat them well. So there has to be some kind of a, like I think Jocelyn Bell's thing of SWAN, thing of rating, which is given to the institution that, yes, we support, we hire, and we encourage women. So that will be very nice to have that certification. I mean, somehow it gets introduced.
Yeah, so I think many institutions that came up in early 2000s, like ICERS, NICER, and also many of the older institutions were upgraded. So in that process, many of them have adopted very good policies, good practices. Some of the older institutions also then respond by trying to rethink. So my sense is that situation has improved somewhat, and people are at least a little bit more careful in what they say. They still may do the same thing, but they are more careful in their statements. And therefore, I am hopeful that situation will continue to improve. but it does require highlighting all the problems and very importantly, keeping track of data. Like Annapurni said that if you are receiving, let's say, 30% of the applications are women, are you hiring 30% women in the end? Okay. If that is not happening, then over a long base time, then that is something to worry about. So data can feed into discussion and policy in a quantitative manner rather than just raising issues which are not backed up by data. Yeah. So, but I'm hopeful that things are improving and they will improve.
Great. So we had some initial discussions that we heard the viewpoints of our panelists. So this would be a good time to open the floor for questions from audiences, because yes. So I see that 2 hands raised, and it would be nice if some volunteers. So we have Proshun and Surhud. Please. Yeah, Surhud. Yeah.
Hello. So I wanted to bring up this issue about implicit biases. I mean, it is easy to say that we should treat each application on its merit and so on. But oftentimes it is a problem that there are these implicit biases which exist. And the members who are on the selection committees or on promotion committees may not have been sensitized to these issues. And so are there steps that you in leadership positions can take in order to address these issues?
Yeah, so it's important to have women as members of these committees. And I also want to raise a point that sometimes women themselves are biased because you are part of the fabric. So sensitization for everyone is extremely important. And also definitely women in committees are important. So that has to be encouraged. And the organization may not even have one woman to be a part of any committee for that matter. So that may be the situation in many cases. So I can't comment on that, but they have to be there. Yeah.
I think the Gati initiative, which has been started about 2 years ago, it is still in a pilot phase, but it is trying to collect quantitative data and also trying, hopefully they will move towards publishing that data as well and recognizing good practices. So once that starts happening, I think there will be some movement. But yes, implicit bias is a major factor.
Thank you. So I think next question.
Yeah, this just came into my mind while listening to one of the Annapurni's comment that, and just consider this as just a case, that maybe there are 2 people and they're not applying at the same time. And it is quite possible that maybe the woman is is kind of better than the man, but as usually probably it turns out that the man will apply fast. And maybe he's better than the other people who have applied and has already got the job. And then probably it becomes more complicated because when the woman applies, then the department may not like to take somebody in the same field again.
No, that's what I'm saying. So one has to treat it as a candidate and for the performance-based kind of thing. Just like the implicit bias is likely to be there, is definitely probably there. But then the institution also, I mean, the people who are involved will also be kind of on a back foot saying that, am I causing a problem by having, people, the same thing with what we discussed. So that has to be sorted out and figured out a way to move forward and make sure that it should be a win-win situation, right? Institution also should understand that having 2 people with a lot of peace of mind able to work within the environment, able to produce as much, better than, having to have travel and figuring out what the family is doing far away and things like that. But at the same time, the organization will have its own concerns, so that also has to be addressed. So these problems are real. The best way to handle it is accept the problem, find out a realistic solution, and implement it.
Yeah, but in my experience, it is rare for applications to come at different times. It's typically they do apply at the same time because they are looking for a solution to the two-body problem. They would like to get jobs in the same place. So most of the time, applications come together.
So any other questions? Oh yes, Manoj.
Thanks, Annapurni, Jasjeet, for raising all these valid points, and thanks to Chetna for moderating this. And we heard all valid points, and particularly about the conflict of interest that you listed down. But I just wanted to talk about the other side. I mean, when you have two people who happen to be married, and if you think that they should be hired, wouldn't it be good if you have both of them? I mean, I'm just trying to point out that, they are professional astronomers, or professional scientists, but they are also human beings. I mean, they're not machines, and they have a professional life, but at the same time, they also have an emotional, personal life too. So wouldn't it be better if they have in the same place and have a fulfilling personal life, so that to ensure that, wouldn't that be more productive, instead of them in them being at two different places? So while agreeing to all the points that you have raised, there are potential conflict of interest and all that, but there is this side too to the problem. So I think we have to, and that also has to be considered while discussing this.
Yeah. So it is difficult to consider this aspect on paper. Just like constitutionally, there is nothing which an institution can do to say no to giving job to two related people. Therefore, whichever department we are talking about, whichever institution we are talking about, people in the leadership position have to be convinced, and this convincing has to be done along with all the people over there, that each one of the two is bringing value, adding value to the institution. So if that is not done, then there will be all kinds of other problems which will arise. So it is not that the fact that two applications are of a couple is hidden from anyone, and it is not that people are trying to not think of that while considering applications. But for there to be positivity on both sides, it is very important for the decision makers to be convinced that both the people are adding value to the institution. And it is possible that because of implicit bias or otherwise, some institutions may decide not to even consider things at that level. Okay? They may decide not to consider one of the two applications, or they may decide to rate them differently, or, as Annapurni mentioned, there are fears as to how will we handle situations that may arise in future. So these discussions or these expression of these fears during decision making can definitely lead to a problem. As you understand, all of these aspects are not on paper. Okay? So the best thing we can do in terms of suggesting good practices is to say that you treat each application on its own merits, and if you are worried about conflict of interest, you develop mechanisms to deal with conflict of interest. So that, I think, is a cleaner way forward. That is my opinion.
Yeah, so they already mentioned to his question that, definitely it brings in a lot more, peace in mind and work, etc., and things like that. But that has to be articulated at the right time. If you have two applications, if it's a couple, let's face it, is the organization looking at as an opportunity, or is the organization looking at it as a threat? Let me put it this way, either 0 or 1. So what is that decide? It's not either 0 or 1, you're somewhere around 50, 60 and trying to push it to 40 and take it out, or 60 and somehow manage to accept it. So that has to be decided. And there would be other questions raised like, will that be treated as two individuals throughout their career in their thing? So there will be many more questions which are coming in. So these to be articulated and then understood, discussed, and is there any way where the organization can help both of them to perform to their potential, as well as the institution also gains in the process. So that has to be convinced. So that is why I'm saying that people who are empathetic but also at the same time able to use that as an advantage for the institution, not as a threat. So those kind of people are required at the decision-making levels to make it happen. If you want to have people in the committee which says that let us accept this as a threat and I don't want to handle that particular problem, it's a problem. I don't want to take that. So it gets eliminated from the beginning itself, right? I don't want to solve it. So that kind of an approach should not be there. So it should be looking at the value the people bring, as Jasit was also mentioning, and which one do you want to weigh? So it's all up to the organization, but there must be some kind of guiding principles and best practices which can actually help them to arrive at a better decision.
Yes, I just want to make a comment on that. I completely agree with what Jasjit and Purni said, that it should be seen in this way that every individual is an individual candidate, and the couple part, yes, we have it in our mind, but as Jasjit said, that the institute must be convinced that having two will add, individually will add, and maybe the couple part can come later, but individually they will add more to the institution, rather than thinking that, they have their personal lives, they need to be happy. I don't think that is probably very complicated if we want to get into that aspect. Just as we want to see every individual as through their potential, in the same way we don't want to have any positive discrimination, that, we want to make them happy and work. We should not be thinking in that way. We should not, once somebody told me that, we are looking for couple applications because we have housing problems in our institutions. So we should not be hiring couples because there is a housing problem in the institution. So, if it's a couple, we can handle with one house. I don't think that is a good reason should be good reason for hiring couples. So questions, I think, yes. There is a question there, please.
Yeah, actually, I agree to the point of Annapurni, that it is a matter of perception, that how you look at that, it is like value addition or a threat. But is it possible that to have some kind of orientation program for the hiring committees? Instead, although it is nothing written on the paper against it, but still it exists. The problem is there. So is it possible to have kind of orientation for all the recruitment committees to basically make this equality, gender equality to be applicable in all the hiring procedure?
I don't know, but there are, I think there are several training programs, several programs for senior executives are there. I do not know whether there is any gender-related hiring kind of a topic that is being put in as one of the programs in the training. So I'm not directly saying that you go and tell to them that you need to hire couples. That's not what the thing is. But gender sensitization in hiring, I think that may be a good idea to have one module for senior executives as best practice as part of the training program. So that can be suggested. So that's the takeaway I think.
I think the inter-academy panel for women, that may be a good forum to
There are many programs which NIAS organizes and other many administrative schools organizes, etc. I think so another, in Hyderabad there is also another one. So these organize some for senior executives. So maybe one module on that, on sensitizing on how to not to gender discrimination while hiring. So that can make a difference, I think. Because repeated hearing is important, because then only you'll understand that there's an issue and you need to actually pay attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah, one more point actually, just want to add to that. See, as the hiring is basically kind of collective decision usually, so it should not be only to the chairman of that committee to take decision, instead it should be voting based. Suppose 2 people may not be in the favor of hiring particular thing, but if the other 8 people in the committee are in favor, so it can be go via the kind of democratic way, instead of just one chairman deciding that, okay, we want to hire particular person or not.
Yeah, that is organization specific. Institutions like ISER, where I come from, over there the process is described in statutes. Similarly for IITs, whereas for research institutions, there is no formal document which may exist, and therefore it depends on each institution as to what practices they follow. In general, each institution, at least for academic positions, takes inputs from a very wide variety of sources. So, who you take inputs from is also in some sense subjective. Like an institution will require 3, 4 or 5 letters of reference other than the persons that have been named by the applicant. Now, how do you go about choosing them? So sensitization has to be exercised even in that part. Yeah. So there are many layers to it, and implicit bias can play a role in many of these layers. So it is not easy to pin down that, if I fix this and the whole thing will get fixed.
So before any questions, let me ask the LOC that how much time do we have? 2 minutes. Okay. So is there any question? I think there's a question at the back. So that would be the last question, and then we will just end the session.
Okay, hi. I'll add to the point of kind of introducing to senior professional, the faculty hiring committee. There are plenty of DEI, diversity and equity, inclusion modules that are available. I'm sure that sometimes when you are introduced to them, you realize that you have this implicit bias within you and you never thought of it before. So having probably a subcommittee within the faculty hiring committee that only looks at this aspect of an application and tries to kind of, remove that bias and make recommendations to the hiring committee, that may be a helpful practice. In addition to obviously exposing the whole committee to these DEI best practices.
Yeah, so I don't know if everyone heard the suggestion. The suggestion was that there are many modules available on DEI, and perhaps there should be a subcommittee within the faculty hiring committee which looks at these aspects and screens applications on that basis. I think the main role of such a committee would be to ensure fairness, and that is something which efforts like Gati, where they are collecting data of how many applications you got, how many you hired, so on, that will begin to reflect and feedback. And as Annapurni said, that there are institutions which run sensitization programs, training programs, orientation programs for senior executives. So yes, if we can plug in these things over there, that will be helpful.
Okay. Thanks a lot to all the people who are a part of this panel, the audience and our panelists. So we would now end this session, and I'm sure this probably there was some brainstorming thing about how to go about these issues. I just want to like to point to you about, this was a conference in 2019 that we did from the Indian Physics Association. It was actually the gender group for the Indian Physics Association, and it was called Pressing for Progress. So in that meeting, we had a charter, so this is called the Hyderabad Charter, that came up, and this was endorsed by many physicists all over the country, and this, the Hyderabad Charter specifically talks about best practice programs that, best practice things that institutions can have, and we as individuals should, as there were some suggestions, we can practice at our levels. And I think it's probably not formalized yet, but the government of there's a science and technology policy document, and there are also these diversity and equity aspects that were part of those documents. So on that note, I would say that things have, at least I have been here for 10 years, and when I came in 2013, the kind of conversations I used to have regarding equity and diversity, and in 2024, the kind of conversations I hear about diversity and equity, I am very hopeful that things are moving in the right direction. And let's hope that we would never have to have a panel like this in future. So on that note, let's thank all of you, and we stop here. And thanks to the LOC for sparing us the extra time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. As we come to the end of the session, the people who are taking the bus and TT, please run. They are leaving right now in front of the main entrance. 2 buses which will leave right